All right, so you're staring at your pharmaceutic syllabus and you see semi-solid dosage forms. You just know that's going to be on the exam, right? Well, in this explainer, we're going to skip the dense textbook stuff and get right to what you actually need to know to nail those evaluation questions. Let's dive in.
So here's our game plan. We'll start with a super quick refresher on what these things even are. Then, we'll talk about the perfect product. What are the ideal properties we're aiming for? After that, we're jumping into the 3 big evaluation areas: how it looks and feels, if it actually works, and, of course, if it's safe. And trust me, you'll want to stick around for the end because we're doing a rapid-fire recap of all the key exam points.
Okay, first things first. Before we can even talk about all the fancy tests, we've got to be on the same page about what it is we're testing. So what are we really talking about here? On the surface, it's just stuff you put on your skin. Simple. But the really key part, the part you gotta understand, is why. Sometimes you want a local effect, right? Like an antiseptic cream on a cut. It works right there and nowhere else. But other times, you want a systemic effect. Think of a nicotine patch. The drug actually goes through the skin into your bloodstream to work on your whole body. Big difference. I mean, you know these. You use them all the time. Creams and ointments, obviously. But think about something like a paste, like that really thick white zinc oxide stuff for diaper rash. It's so packed with powder that it's super stiff, and that's on purpose. It creates this amazing protective barrier that doesn't just melt off, which is exactly what you need it to do. Okay, get your highlighters out because this is a classic exam question. The type of base changes everything. With an oil and water cream, you have little oil drops floating in water. That's why it feels so light and non-greasy. Kind of like your daily moisturizer, it just vanishes and washes right off. But flip it around to a water and oil cream, and now water is trapped inside the oil. That's going to feel greasy and create a heavy-duty, water-resistant barrier. Totally different feel, totally different purpose. So we know what they are, but what makes one good? You know, what separates a basic cream from a really fantastic one? Let's check out the gold standard. Let's play formulator for a second. Imagine it's your job to create the world's most perfect cream. What's on your checklist? What qualities are you shooting for to make it absolutely ideal? Well, it really just boils down to these 3 things. The physical properties, it has to feel nice and smooth, not gritty or greasy. The physiological stuff, it can't be irritating, has to play nice with your skin. And then there's application. It's got to be easy to put on, and most importantly, it has to actually release the drug. And here's the thing. Every single test we're about to talk about is designed to measure one of these 3 pillars. All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty of the tests themselves. We're going to start with the most intuitive ones, the things you can see, feel, and measure pretty directly. This breaks it down nicely. First up, appearance. This is more than just, does it look okay? A quick visual can tell you if it's gritty or if the oil and water are separating. Then viscosity. That's just a fancy word for thickness. Is it a runny lotion or a thick paste? And finally, spreadability is exactly what it sounds like. How easy is it for a patient to actually spread it on their skin? See, it all ties back to those ideal properties. Okay, so the product looks and feels great. Awesome. But that's only half the story. The real million-dollar question is, does it actually work? This is where performance testing comes in, and it's all about whether the drug can get out of the cream and onto your skin. Now, these 3 tests are where the rubber really meets the road. Drug content is a straight-up chemical test to prove you have the right amount of medicine in there. It's a non-negotiable. Then you have rate of release and rate of penetration. These tests measure how fast and how much of that drug actually gets out of the base and into the skin. I mean, a product could have perfect drug content, but if that drug stays locked inside, the whole thing is useless. You know, our product can pass every other test with flying colors, but if it gives you a rash, it's a total failure. And that brings us to what is maybe the most critical evaluation of all, patient safety. This is an absolute must-do for any topical product. Basically, they apply it and watch very closely for any bad signs. We're talking redness, rashes, swelling, you name it. The goal is simple, a big fat 0 on the irritation scale. No reactions allowed. And if a product is going anywhere near the eyes, oh man, the safety standards go into overdrive. The tissues in your eye are incredibly sensitive, so they run very specific irritation studies to make sure there is absolutely no damage to the cornea, the iris, or anything else. There is 0 room for error here. Okay, we have covered a ton of ground. I know. So let's boil it all down into just the high-yield facts you need for your exam. This is the stuff you've got to have locked and loaded.
At the end of the day, it's all about these three buckets. You can think of it like this. How does it feel? Does it work? And is it safe? If you can remember those three questions, you've got the big picture down.
First up, remember spreadability. This is all about how easy it is to apply. It's a really practical measure of how user-friendly the product is. Next, viscosity. Don't let the word trip you up. It just means thickness. Is it a light cream or a heavy ointment? That's viscosity, and it's fundamental to how the product works. And finally, the drug content assay. This one is huge. It's not about feel or look. It's the hard chemical proof that the dosage is correct. It's the test that says, yep, the amount of medicine in here is exactly what it says on the box. Absolutely critical for safety and effectiveness.
So, I'll leave you with a little brain teaser to chew on. How do you think a thick, greasy paste would compare to a light, water-soluble jelly in those performance tests? Think specifically about spreadability and the rate of release. If you can figure that one out, you have totally mastered this topic. Thanks for joining me, and go crush those exams.